somebody's sad, I want them to be happy. If they're hurt, I want to heal them, right? But sometimes when somebody's in hardship, they don't need you to fix them. The thing isn't going to be fixed anytime soon. They just need you to sit with them. They don't need your platitudes.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Humanity 2.0 podcast. Today, we have the shepherd himself, Paul Granger, who is the host of Where Did You See God podcast and also an author of 20 plus books. He's been busy. I honestly think that you and God must have a printing press somewhere in your heart of hearts. Lovely to meet you, Paul. How are you doing today?
Doing pretty good. It's been a hard season for a while, and yet there are moments like today where there's just little gifts throughout the day. I mean, it's a beautiful day for one, and I love that. But so many moments that have reminded me that I do not need to be downcast as much as life might tell me I need to. There might be more than what's happening, and so I'm doing good.
I kind of need a little bit more.
Oh man,
what moments? What downcast?
So I've been full-time volunteer ministry since 2018. There's many more stories that go into that. But what that functionally means is it's not ministry as most people understand it, where you're trying to accomplish a certain project and then you get paid and there you go. I've not gotten a traditional paycheck since 2018. And every day, I don't know what the day is going to look like. All I know is I'm supposed to be loving my neighbors. And that could take some very formal functional forms. It could take some unexpected forms, and then it could just be, I have no idea what's going on. Ultimately, a lot of what I'm doing, it can demand a lot from me. And I've found the strength that sustained me through it. But when that's tied with it not producing the fruits that people would normally say it should produce, so like writing books, well, then that must mean you're getting a lot of income from it, or you're getting a lot of book sales, or a lot of people are knowing your name. No, because I know that's not why I'm supposed to be writing, but it can be hard when that's the expectation. And there's just been hard things in life, many challenges. And so I find myself oftentimes feeling like my fuel is gone, yet I'm still needing to keep flying. And I really believe that God has sustained and refueled me while I'm still in flight, like the plane that has the gas hose come down. But there's just been some really deep, hard things that have happened recently that I come into a day like today, starting off anticipating that something would be hard and frustrating. And then it was validated when my son forgot his book bag, which meant I was going to have to drive back home and then drive back to school and lose about an hour of time. But then, like I said, I got to sit on a porch with a pastor of mine who's been a part of my life since 2007. And it was just such a restorative conversation. And I walked there, walked back, and just walking in the beautiful, unexpectedly not too cold temperature. And so, life is hard for a lot of people right now. And there's a lot of reasons to be dismayed. And you can find a lot of evidence to support giving up. And yet I keep on finding these moments that say, even though it looks like there's reason to give up, there's actually something you don't realize, don't see. That if you just keep going, one day you're going to look back and say, oh man, I don't know how I kept going, but also I'm glad I did because I didn't know that this was ahead.
Yeah. And you never know who it is that you're going to touch with all of the actions that you take each day. Mm-hmm. It may not be a conventional day-to-day life, but you're doing really good work. And your books, someone's going to read them and receive what information you're trying to share. Even if it's AI at Amazon, it's reading it and it's accepting the information and saying, wow, this guy's smart. Yeah. But I love that you are still, regardless of what's going on around you, putting forth that positive energy and helping others. I think that's everything. I think that now more than ever, it's what we are called to do, but also just so necessary because there is so much negativity and so many things happening everywhere. If we can't do direct action by, changing it in a snap, we can most definitely put out positive energy and messages to help one another every day. Now, when you hear the word humanity, what image or story or feeling comes to mind for you and why?
Yeah. So again, I identify as, I'm going to say Christ follower. And the reason I say that, and I'll talk more about this, is for most of my life, I identify as a Christian, grew up in a Christian environment. And I was taught that everyone is made in God's image, the imago Dei, as some people will put it. And that's supposed to mean something, right? If somebody says they believe in God and everyone is created his image, then that requires a level of love and respect and dignity. The reason I say Christ follower instead of Christian is because Christianity as a broad sweep has not always done a good job at treating everyone as made in the image of God, of respecting humanity. Christians have been at the forefront of some really rough stuff, really bad things, have justified things. I mean, scripture was rewritten to justify slavery in America. That's not the Jesus that I read about in scripture. And so for me, I don't want to just wear a label. Yeah. I want to actually follow this guy that I'm claiming really existed, who was very clear about not just the way he lived, but the way he loved. And so for me, when I meet somebody, when I meet a neighbor, I want to honor them and respect them as though they were made in the image of a creator, that they have inherent value, they have purpose, that they aren't just some broad sweep or some category. Like each person in their humanity is important. And I want to respond in that way because it is so easy to see people as broad sweeps, to see them as categories, and then to treat them however we feel about that broad sweep, that category. It happens with everybody. It sadly happens a lot with Christians, but it doesn't have to. And it can start very simply with just this next interaction. And then I practice it again. But that's what comes to my mind is Imago Dei, image of God, that everyone was created with purpose and value and deserves to be interacted with as such.
I love that phrase, inherent value. I think that's so beautiful and so true. Well, thank you in advance for sharing that with our audience and sharing that with people, period. That's so important for them to understand. I also love that you don't prescribe to the label. I was curious about that as to like what degree are you, but I feel like over time, Christians have evolved. Everyone's evolved in some way, shape, or form. And you see more people that are open to other perspectives, other religions, observing other practices that they're not even part of simply because it's enlightening them or it's speaking to them in some way, shape, or form. So I've been under, I guess, that same like non-label category since I was a young kid. And I remember my mom being a Catholic and then being Christian and switching around. But at one point, she was so dissatisfied with the church that she wouldn't let us go to church. So she grounded us when we went to church, which is like beyond. Mm-hmm. In seeing different churches, especially growing up, I still went to several different types of churches and just stayed open to whatever it was that they were wanting to share with me. Ultimately, I came to understand that for each person, the path is different. Universally love being kind to your neighbor, fellowshipping in their gifts, your gifts, and spreading goodness with the world and helping one another. Those are core beliefs. When you think about moments that you've shared with your fellow humans in your ministry or even outside of the ministry, just on a daily basis, do you have a story that comes to mind where it just surprised you about how amazing, a person was as far as like an act of kindness or just a simple word of encouragement?
Yeah. Well, one thing I want to touch on is you mentioned in my ministry or even outside of it, I think that's another misstep that particularly the American church has done is it separates out ministry from everyday life. And so the time that I love people is in this formalized space. But that's, again, not what scripture says. It's you love whoever crosses your path. You love your neighbor. And so that's been my hope, is to live like that. And when you live like that, you find these moments like you described where it's unexpectedly encouraging. The one that comes to my mind right now is I have a friend he's an older man, spent most of his life not having consistent shelter. And for most of the last 15 plus years that I've known him, he's usually been staying in garages, vacant garages, on porches. And most people would look at him and make some assumptions. And some of them might be valid on a level, like, okay, it looks like he's homeless. Well, yeah, he doesn't have a house, But then they could start to branch out into why is that? What has he done wrong? What does that say about, do I want to interact with him? But, we've been friends for 15 plus years and he's a person. He has circumstances and situations. But one of the moments that really surprised me was I knew functionally he did not have a lot practically to offer in terms of money, gifts, things like that. So I never expected anything from him. And most people in that would then like not expect period anything from him, but also feel like it's on them to be the one to give. They're the givers and he's the receiver. But there's one day he came up to our house and knocked on the door, and I opened it, and he's standing there with a bag of groceries, and he's like, "Hey, I just got these from a church down the street, and I don't eat that much, so I wanted to see if you and your family wanted it." And so here's this guy who has very little, wanting to be generous with what he had. And that wasn't a localized event. There are many times he brought food by. There's one of my favorite things is somebody gave him a table, like a little porch table, and he didn't need it, so he brought it to me. And when it's I love it. It was exactly what I needed for my porch. And I was like, this is great. And so, so many people wouldn't even interact with him and would discount him, and they would miss out on opportunities for friendship, but opportunities, again, to see humanity in someone that they decided was, they wouldn't say it like this, but was less than human, was less than, period. But that's just not the case. And the more you interact with people with authenticity, with curiosity, with care, with love, you begin to not just learn more about them, but hear stories you wouldn't have expected, be challenged in your own understanding of reality, of what is normal, which there is no such thing as normal. Normal is what we think it is, but realistically, there's millions of versions of normal throughout the world, even throughout our community. When we actually interact with people, we begin to see that the world is bigger than we thought. Our bubble, if we're willing, can get popped. And then suddenly we get a deeper understanding, not just of their humanity, but our own. We can begin to change. We can begin to value healthier things. And so yeah, I love those moments where I'm surprised. And I love that it then forces me to then contend with any prejudices or assumptions that I might still carry, even in my efforts to do ministry, in my efforts to love people. Like, I'm still human. I'm still going to have my assumptions.
What's his name?
His name is Tyrone.
So I love that you see Tyrone for who he is as opposed to his circumstances. I think that's everything when you're homeless. I've known a similar experience, and everyone looks at you with presumptions, and you are pretty much just not a person anymore. But people such as yourself that look beyond circumstances, those are definitely golden people for sure. In life, love and loss seem to define a lot of our shared experiences. Do you recall a moment where either love or loss taught you something very profound and made you just care very deeply?
Yeah. One immediately came to my mind. So, we all grow up celebrating Father's Day and Mother's Day. And if someone comes from a household with a father and mother, you think nothing of it. The problem is not everybody comes from a household with a father and mother. The problem is somebody might come from that, and then they want to start their own household and they can't have children. And their experience of a day like that is vastly different. I didn't think much of Father's Day and Mother's Day until 2012. In 2011, I and my wife were very excited to find out that we were pregnant with our first child. My father died when I was 5, and one of the things that instilled in me was a desire to be a father myself and live longer for my children than my father was able to live for me, to be able to be with them through childhood into adulthood. And so I was excited about one day being a father. And so finally the time's arrived, and we get to our 9-week appointment, and there is no heartbeat. And there's a much longer story around that. We ended up hoping that something would change, praying that something would change. But in the end, not only did we miscarry the first child, but then in February, found out we had miscarried again. And then we're coming up to Mother's Day and Father's Day. And for the first time, my wife and I are like, this does not feel good. This does not feel good. But then we went into spaces where it still felt good for a lot of people. And people were celebrating it and excited and all that. And we're like, we feel lament, not excitement. And then we were struck with how many other people are in this space. Because in that period of experiencing miscarriages, we did the research. We learned it's actually a lot more prevalent than we realize, which means in any given space where someone's saying, Happy Father's Day, Happy Mother's Day, there may be a bunch of people who are lamenting. And so it forever changed not just how I engage those holidays, but many, because again, we have this myth of normalcy in our lives and we experience things as we assume everyone experiences them. But the more you realize that not everyone has the same experiences, the more you can be mindful around how somebody could encounter it. And it can be in big ways, like around Father's Day and Mother's Day, where real loss could be the backstory behind the lament. But it could even be in small ways, like, the annual controversy around Christmas. And even though most people celebrate Christmas, not everybody does. And I'm like, I'm okay if I say happy holidays or just have a good day, because it is more important for me to care for and honor the other person than it is to push my assumption of normalcy, my assumption of how life works. And then everything in between, right? There's moments where if we're not cognizant that other people have experienced life differently, then we may not realize how we're harming other people. And it can be the flip side too, like you described, of love and loss. The more we discover the beauty in life and beauty in the world, we can actually be that for others. But the core of both of those is getting outside of our limited mindset, getting outside of our bubble, getting outside of our understanding of normalcy to actually have eyes to see beyond ourselves.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry for your losses, but I can certainly understand how you go through so many different stages in that experience, but also it's very real. It's very real for you and for your wife. And I'm sure when you meet other people who don't have the ability to have children, there's a bond that you share. You're able to probably give them hope or perspective or some kind of encouragement that no one else can.
Or even just sit with people. I think that's the thing we don't understand until we experience something. Because prior to that, you want to fix the problem. If somebody's sad, I want them to be happy. If they're hurt, I want to heal them, right? But sometimes when somebody's in hardship, they don't need you to fix them. The thing isn't going to be fixed anytime soon. They just need you to sit with them. They don't need your platitudes. Like when we had the miscarriages, the worst one was when someone's like, oh, God just wanted another angel in heaven. That doesn't help me. Don't say, right? Like platitudes can be well-meaning and also very hurtful. So yes, when we experience these things, we come to understand that because we knew what did and didn't help us, then we can be that with others. And if that means just sitting quietly and not saying a word, that might be exactly what needs to happen.
Very, very true. Be just a second. Like you literally answered the next question. So, I'm
just expediting the process.
You're doing so great. Everyone, he's trying to leave us. In society, we often judge because we don't understand. When you look at your life in ministry, what's something that people don't understand about the calling that you receive or just the goodness that it gives you from being able to commune with others?
Yeah. I think what people don't understand is we are prone to attribute like an American understanding of purpose. And even like a human understanding, but I mean, being an American understanding of purpose and success and value to things like ministry, to things like loving others. And so what that looks like then is if I am doing any kind of ministry, or if I'm building a relationship with a neighbor, people assume that it is then so that their situation will change. Things will get better. One of the things I learned long ago is that is not always the case. There are not always the traditional success stories. That does not mean there is not actual success. It's just success might not be the changing of that situation. So I wrestled with that for a long time with my friend Tyrone because there were so many moments where the homelessness could have ended and then it didn't. Or these other issues could have ended and then they didn't. And despite efforts and despite resources and yet there's this clear sense that important things were happening. Even in the moments where he was still outside, there were opportunities to extend authentic love that might have had a deeper impact, right? And so, I facilitate a community Bible study. And in the church, the expectation of that is first and foremost, the most important thing is the study and that you're studying the Bible and that, there's people that are involved. We flip it. The most important thing is the community. The Bible is going to be a part of it. The study is not the most vital thing. And the reason that's important is when it's the traditional way of thinking about it, then the thing that's protected is the space. Everyone needs to be focused. They need to have good attendance. They need to be quiet. They need to be responsive. And if they're not doing that, then maybe they need to leave because, we got to study the Bible, right? For us, because community's first, that means there are people that can be a part of it that might not be welcome in other traditional Bible studies, because we had a woman one time for a long time who was wrestling with, among other things, dementia. And she interrupted, I'm talking like every minute, with the same question that she had asked multiple times. And it was frustrating, couldn't get a word in, and it was very distracting. She would talk over people, and in any other space, she would be asked to leave and never come back. And justifiably so, from a certain stand. You're disrupting our space. But that's not what our space is about. Our space is about being community and loving each other. And so there's this shared understanding that, all right, we're going to love her. We're going to figure this out. It's okay if we can't get through this time. And I remember there was one time at the end where she had already interrupted a lot. And she's like, can I say something at the end? It's like, yeah, that's fine. And I thought she was going to ask for something, ask for money, ask for a ride, ask for something. Instead, she's like, I just want to thank all of you because I feel so alone most of the time. And I will sit outside my house and I will wave at people and they won't wave back and nobody wants to talk to me. And I just feel loved because y'all listen to me and y'all seem to care about me. And it really struck me that like what would have seemed like wasted, distracted time to so many people was exactly what she needed. And we could feel like we had lost something if we didn't pay attention to that moment. But because many of us did, we realized, we got to be a part of something really valuable. Was it what I expected? No. And so this has played out so many times where somebody who would not have felt welcome or would not have been welcome in many spaces was able to come in because success wasn't based on the fruit of that space or the size of that space. It was based on just being the space. And metrics, those are bonus if there are any. But this is not about checking off boxes. And because the other piece is, for many of the folks that come through, if we held to the metric of size, well, we got to get bigger and bigger, get a bigger in space, because if it's just 3 people, that's failing. There are people that if they saw a big group, they wouldn't have come in because there is 3 people and there's lunch on the table. And they're like, I feel like I might be okay to come in. So, and then it allows for this level of intimacy where somebody can share more openly with a few people than they would if it was a large group. And so I think that's what a lot of people miss is people bring in their understanding of metrics of success, their understanding of value and of purpose, and may miss some truly, truly beautiful things that don't look like what you expected. But man, oh man, the fruit of it is far greater than the best run program.
Yeah. That sounds like an amazing group. I think you need to get more chairs because there's going to be more people coming. Where does this group meet? Asking for a friend and write it down. Man, I love that so much. I love that you just give so willingly and that your group has that invitation. How amazing for her and for everyone that gets to be a part of it. So that's awesome. Religiously and culturally speaking, there are so many stories that relate to humanity. Biblically speaking, what story or verse captures humanity for you and tell us why?
One popped immediately to my mind. All right. So the way the story goes is Jesus had been going around and sharing and healing for long enough that crowds started to develop. People would hear he was coming to town and they would rush to be there. And it got to the point where walking down the street, there would just be these masses of people crowded around Jesus, just hoping to hear some bit of wisdom that he would say, or like say, my arm's broken. Can you, right? Like this is the state of it. And his followers, his disciples, understandably wanted to kind of keep some order and protect him, and particularly protect him from people that they feel like really shouldn't be bothering Jesus. And so one day there's this guy that has been blind for a long time. His name's Bartimaeus. And he's gotten to a place of desperation and hopelessness. I mean, nothing has been able to bring his sight back. And because he's blind, his life is rough. He has to beg for enough to sustain him. And He deals with rejection. He deals with people saying, well, you're probably blind because you did something wrong. Like, this is probably your fault. You're probably not a good person. So it's a hard life. And he's feeling desperate. He's feeling hopeless. And then he hears that this Jesus guy's coming, and he had heard about this guy. And so there's this moment of desperate hope. He starts crying out to Jesus, Jesus, son of David, save me, save me. And the disciples start fussing at him. The other people around start, be quiet. Don't bother the teacher. Get out of here. Go away. And from a standpoint, they're justified, right? Because man, this is disruptive. Right? It's like how people can feel if they see somebody begging for change. Oh man, I was trying to walk down the sidewalk and this guy, we have these responses that can come out of discomfort, frustration, sometimes, safety, right? But it ignores the reality that there is a human standing there. And in this case, Jesus was the one that noticed that Bartimaeus is a human, is made in the image of his Father and deserving of love's respecting honor. And so he stops and he calls him over. So that would be a good story in and of itself. But that's not the part that I love so much. It's clear that he's blind, right? By the appearance of his eyes, by the way he's stumbling to get through the crowd or somebody's helping him. And so when he gets to Jesus, Jesus asks a question that makes no sense. And he says, what is it you want from me? Right? There had to be people in the crowd that are he's blind, Jesus. He doesn't want to be blind anymore. Bartimaeus might have even felt that too. Isn't it clear? And for me, the beauty of his question is he restored this dignity in humanity, because everyone else looked at Bartimaeus as a blind man. Jesus just looked at the man, did not make assumptions about what Bartimaeus wanted, what Bartimaeus needed. He gave them the dignity of stopping and calling him over, but then the dignity of treating him as anyone else in that crowd. He had probably not been treated like that for years, if not his whole life. And then Jesus does heal him. But I feel like there had to be this deeper healing that happened when for the first time, Bartimaeus did not feel like a failure, a wretch, someone that was unwanted, someone that was unseen, right? Because in that moment, he probably felt seen by Jesus. And then when he got his eyes back, that was that's a bonus. But oh my gosh, the restoration in his heart of being treated with dignity. So I love that story, because I think we can get caught up on the wise words of Jesus and the healings of Jesus and miss that he actually engaged with people in a way that not only did most people not, but he actually caught a lot of flack for. People actually rebuked him for the way he interacted with people. And he did it because he understood that every single person was worthy of and deserving of love, and that he had the capacity to give it. And he was trying to get others to see, you do too. What I'm doing, love like I'm loving. You can do this. Go do it.
I love that he saw the man. I love that idea. That's amazing. Good story. If you could share a message with humanity, any message at all, what would that message be?
Yeah. So, we've talked at length about seeing the humanity in others, and that's an important message. We can understand that, but hit another barrier, which is, that's great, but I'm not capable of this. I don't feel like I'm trained enough to interact with somebody who's wrestling with addiction, or I don't feel like I have the energy to deal with somebody who's begging for money, or I don't have the desire to deal with someone who's just talking really foolishly right now. And right, we have all these reasons why we can't in this moment love this person. And I think what I really want people to understand about me is that if anybody's listening to this and thinking, oh, Paul's a great person. No, no, because this is not about me. I can tell you there are so many times when I knew it was not about me. I didn't have the strength, or I didn't have the desire. I didn't have the capacity. I talked about how it's been a hard season for a while. The idea of doing ministry, I don't have the strength for that, but there is a strength that can come from beyond us. And for me, believing in the Bible, believing in God, I do believe there's a lot of strength that comes through that. Jesus talks about, I'm going to send a helper who's able to teach you and remind you of things and equip you to be able to do things far beyond even I did. But even if somebody doesn't believe in God, this is anecdotally true. We have all heard the story of the mom whose child is trapped under the car, and then suddenly she has this superhuman strength, right? We've all had moments where we can look back and say, I don't know how I got through that because I didn't think I could. And so when we're talking about the opportunity to love another person, if we bind that to our capacity, our understanding, our strength, our willingness, our desire, then there are going to be a whole lot of times we will choose not to love. If we instead go into an opportunity to love someone and honestly say, I have no idea how to do this, but I'm willing to do this, I think you will be surprised at the ability of love to come through you, sometimes in spite of you. And that's what I would want people to know. Whether you believe in God or not, everyone is deserving of love. And everyone is equipped to provide that love. And the only stopping point is when we decide to restrict it. And I would encourage people to, even if it's just one little step at a time, test drive out those opportunities to love in simple ways and then see what happens. And when you're surprised by the power of love in spite of you, then you're going to be able to step a little bigger the next time. You might be able to leap next time. You might find one day you're flying and you're like, I don't even know how, but here we go.
That's an excellent message. Thank you for sharing that.
Pleasure.
Now, on the daily or weekly or biweekly with your podcast, I understand that you shepherd others to share their story. What does that mean?
Yeah. You know, one thing I'm quick to tell people is I'm not trying to run a podcast. That the point of it is not a podcast. That's what I'll tell the guests when they reach out. I'm like, this is not about making a podcast episode. That's a likely byproduct. What this is an authentic, accessible space to process. Now, for those who are also Christians, it can be to process God. It can be to process who he's created us to be and what that means for today. For those who maybe were Christians or wrestling with it or like, I don't know what I think about God, same deal. Like, let's be honest and talk about this. And for those that aren't, life is full of things that are hard to understand. And what I know is true in life, and unfortunately very true in the church, is we are not always good at creating authentic, accessible spaces. Where it's like we said earlier, the purpose is not to fix or give answers, but to simply be present. And so that's what I strive to do. I want someone to feel like they have a space to just like, kind of like you shared when we first started talking. You're like, you just roll. Like, we're just going to talk. You know, this is a real conversation. Like, that's what I want. And what I find is sometimes it's not until about a half hour in that somebody's finally get down the guards, let down the defenses, and let down the expectations. Because I get a lot of folks lately who are used to podcasting.
Sure.
And so they go into it in podcast mode. And I'm like, nah, that's not going to work. Come as yourself. Come as yourself.
They're like, I've written all these books and
blah,
blah, blah, says, da, da, da. Did you know?
And I'll tell them too, I'm like, if you just give your normal pitch, like you've given that pitch a million times, but if you just come as your authentic self, if you really do want to promote your book, that's going to be the best way to do it because people are going to be intrigued by you, by your story. And then when they find that you've written something, they're going to hear more. Commercial, maybe you'll get a couple people out of that, but authenticity.
It's everything.
But then I also tell people who have not been on podcasts, who aren't used to podcasts, this isn't about like you having this phenomenal story that everyone needs to hear. Like, you have value and purpose. You do have a story. You might have questions that are valuable to people. So let's just have a conversation and see. And I try to free them from the pressure, the performative pressure to produce something that people will be entertained by. Because what I find is that there's something really beautiful when two people are authentically talking together. I mean, there's something amazing and unique that comes out of it that it's actually can be more impactful than the best told story. And so, yeah, my rhythm is very flexible, but anytime somebody comes to the table that wants to share, or anytime I come across someone, I'm like, I feel like I should invite them to share. And I dust off the mic and I create the room. And then I tell them it's not until the end of the conversation that I'll ask, would you be open to this being shared with others? And if they say no, then great. We have a conversation that we just got to enjoy. It's recorded. So here, you can keep it, listen. Does not have to be on the podcast because that's not what it's about. It's not about me or my, listen count or anything like that.
Right.
It's in this moment, we had an authentic, accessible space. And that could be created by all of us anywhere. And I'm hoping that is one thing that spreads, is this idea that we can actually just authentically be with other people.
Amen. And having the spaces, creating those spaces, that's so important. And you do that. I think that authenticity is so important. People can hear it in the episodes. They can hear it when you're authentic and when you are being your true self and you're not just reading off of bullet points on a screen, rehearsed. Yeah. So that is everything to me. I would rather hear who you are and what makes you who you are, because there's someone else that's listening that's going to identify with you and learn from you or grow from you or just, be inspired by you and the fact that you've come through so much, with your spouse, with your beliefs and with your acceptance of other people, just blind love for other people, knowing that there's someone like you that exists that doesn't look at, who someone is or what their characteristics are, but who they truly are inside. That's so important. Now, before we started this, I made a joke about the books. You have 20 some odd plus books.
Yeah.
How?
Yeah.
Is it you and Jesus in the basement? Is it AI and Jesus? What is it?
Man, there's so many people using AI to write books, and that is a hard line for me. Like, I want authenticity in what I write, so AI is not welcome. I have some relationship issues, but so I will say, my desire to create authentic, accessible space also exists in the other ways that I love my neighbors and serve, and the books are one of them. Is, sometimes people might not be able to come to a group, might not want to come to a group, but could sit and read a book. And if something I've written can help somebody feel seen and understood, then I want to provide it. But my life is very busy. I've got 3 kids. It's just, even today, I can't remember if I mentioned it here, but I had to, I got to drop off my son, my kids to school. My son didn't have his book bag, and I had to drive all the way back home and drive all the way back there, and I lost an hour. And so I don't feel like I have the mental bandwidth, sometimes the desire to write. I personally really do feel like there are things that God has invited me to put into writing. And sometimes I go into it not knowing what it's going to be. There have been some things that I've written that all I had is I woke up in the morning and there was a title in my head. I'm like, all right, I feel like I'm supposed to write this. And I start to put my finger on the keyboard. I was like, I don't know where this is going. And, something comes about. One of the beautiful things I discovered is, I'd written something back in 2021 or 2022. And I wanted it to be in physical form, but I didn't know how to do that. And all I understood is that if you got lucky, a publisher might discover you, but otherwise you better have a lot of money or you better have a lot of this, that, and the other. And then I discovered Kindle Direct Publishing. You don't need to pay anything. If you create your content, you just put in the information, put in a cover, get everything in order, and then boom, and it's on-demand printing. I'm like, that's great, because I'm not doing this to make money. I'm not doing this to become a renowned bestseller, which is why people would say I have a horrible marketing approach, because I don't value those things in the way that I'm supposed to as an author. What I value is creating this authentic, accessible space. And so one of the craziest things is there'll be seasons where I won't write, then seasons where I'll write a lot. But coming into this year, I had written a weekly blog for YWAM River City in 2024. And as I got to the end of the year, I felt this sense from God that he was saying, hey, you've been writing all year. I gave you a book. Just compile it together. That's all these blogs that you thought were separate. It's a book. And so I was like, oh, that's great. I can create a book without having to write. So I put it all together and put it out in January of this year. And then I was really wrestling with the idea of joy and getting mad at God for not giving me joy. And then realizing, what if it's not that he's not giving it to me? What if it's that I'm rejecting it? And so I went through and found passages on joy. And I spent a month, the month of January, going through these things and writing it down. And I was like, oh, I got a 30-day devotional now. All right, let me put my raw thoughts out there. And then every year I write a devotional, 5-day devotional for YWAM River City. And that was in March. And by the time I got to April, I'm thinking, oh man, I've written a book a month. What if I just kept going? And I'm joking, but I felt another sense that God was saying, what if you did? And as of, I've got it here because I needed to record a video for it. As of this week, I'm 11 for 11.
Wow.
And this is a good example too. You asked how it happens. This one's called How Long, Lord? A week-long devotional for the long suffering. I was in a hard place. I was really struggling, last month, really, really just, raw conversations with God in the car, level raw. And there's this passage And I won't read the whole thing, though it's only 6 verses. But Psalm 13, this is David, who scripture says labels as a man after God's own heart. Like, this is the guy that most people know killed Goliath, right? Like, most people know he became a king. Like, this is a big deal guy. And then he's saying, how long, Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I wrestle with my thoughts and day after day have sorrow in my heart? I'm sitting there like, I'm wrestling with my thoughts. I have sorrow in my heart. Like, I feel like God's not responding right now. I'm asking him, how long is this going to keep on going on? And so I spent like a few days going through it, like just one verse a day, and then realized, oh, I've written it out. I've got this thing. And so in a week, this from writing to publishing came about. And so I think what I would encourage people to know is writing can seem unattainable. We are in a time when it actually is more attainable than ever. Like, again, Kindle Direct Publishing, anybody can publish. That can be a problem sometimes, because sometimes maybe somebody doesn't need to publish what they publish, but you can. And if getting your thoughts out, if processing your story, if asking your questions, if it could have value being in a tangible form, anybody can do that. And I would invite people to do that, because there's something powerful in that. Many people know this in the form of journaling, right? A lot of people who journal stand by it. Like, this is, if I didn't do this, I don't know where I'd be. And so that's, I think a lot of what I've written might have been more for me than anyone else. It was my own processing. But to your point earlier, I do believe that is also creating an authentic, accessible space, because I'm not the only one resonating with those words. Like, how long is this going to keep on going on? I don't have any strength left. I'm ruminating in my thoughts. And so if someone is in that place and they can pick up something like this and feel seen, even if I never hear that story, it's worth the time. And so I'm confident I will be 12 for 12 and complete my year of books. And then after that, I don't know, because it's been a whole lot of writing this year.
We're going to check on you next year before the year is up and do a follow-up interview. Thank you so much for sharing everything with us today. Where do people find your books? Where do they find you on the web, social stuff?
So like I said, I'm not one for self-promotion or advertising. What I want is to offer authentic, accessible space. And all of that can be found at wheredidyousee.god.com. But that's what I would hope, is I don't want somebody to go just because I've got books or I've got podcasts or I've got videos or I got all these things. I want, if someone feels like they're hoping to be seen in some way, they're struggling, or they just want to be encouraged, like, I hope that space can be that. And if anyone ever wants to process, like, on a call like this, that could then, if they want to become an episode, great, I'm here for it. But the key thing is humanity. Everyone is deserving of love. And I know that my calling in life is to love others. I'm confident in that. I feel like that's all of our call, but I know that for me. So I'm going to strive to do it. So anyone that comes by my way, to the best of my ability, I want to try to live that out with authenticity and willingness.
Well, they're definitely going to go to your site because they want to be part of that space. I mean, it's such an amazing space that you've built. So thank you for building that. Paul Granger, you are an awesome soul. It's been a pleasure meeting you. I knew we were going to get along, so I'm so glad that we got to meet today.
Yeah.
And for everyone else, thank you for watching Humanity 2.0 podcast. We'll see you guys next week when we meet more humans and connect the world, because we all could use some kindness and just hope for Humanity 2.0. See you guys next week.